Okay,
Smiling, but
to call this meeting to order, would you take roll, please?
Mrs. Leskowicz,
Here?
Mrs. Butler,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Via. Here, am I saying that correctly? V, okay, all one. And Mrs. Skipper.
Here.
Okay, and then we have, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now we'll adopt the agenda, so understand that you're gonna do a treasurer's report. So I didn't see,
Item J. It's on.
oh, is already.
Just
I put it on-
disaster
put it on
getting
this afternoon
ready.
for you. Then we decide to change up the order after that.
Oh, very good then, okay. Thank you.
So for those following along, yeah, we're gonna jump back to about the last item, which is gonna be my report. I'm talking about the state budget. I attended the OASBO conference. Actually, both of us did this past week. One of the more interesting conferences with the state budget. I would say the state budget is probably one of the most unique ones that I have seen in my career. It is moving along rather quickly.
Excuse me one second, we just need to do a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay.
All right. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So before we do that, can we pull the calendars?
Well, so if we're gonna pull it off, then we have to do a vote. I sent out an email earlier, so everybody knew kind of how that would go. But we'd have to take a vote on
But
whether,
this is a work session. We shouldn't be voting, so it really shouldn't have been on there.
but it can be. And it's, the way I understand it, it's gonna be very impactful if we take it off. And so we're already in session here. It's a regular meeting. We can certainly vote on the items. So,
I'd like it removed.
okay, so then I'll need a motion to have it removed.
I will make a motion to have it removed.
And then can I get a second?
I'll second.
And then is there discussion?
We can add it to a discussion item, but I don't think it needs to be voted on.
I would disagree.
Okay.
So a couple of things.
Okay. We're just gonna either vote or not vote, right?
No, because how would everybody vote on whether or not to take it off the agenda?
But
if
it's
they
a
don't
work session.
understand
We're
that-
not supposed to be voting in a work session.
You can vote in a work session. It was on the agenda to vote in a work session and nobody had any problems with
No, I did. I sent a message and said,
today, but it's already been published.
how would I know it was on there before it was published?
Shelley sent it out on the 4th of April at 4:04 PM. And so that it clears the 2 business days or 4 calendar days, whichever way you want to look at it.
Published.
Yes, we have a draft copy. We have draft access the whole time.
Okay. I'm ready to vote.
But so first, I think it's important to understand the impact if we table this to a later time. And so you're asking to push it back for a whole nother week, correct?
Correct.
So are you gonna share why you want to, just because it's a work session, or is there a reason?
I'd like an opportunity to have a discussion about it first. And because it's a work session, it's not an emergency. So really, we should only be voting on items in a work session that are an emergency, and this is not. It's 1 week.
It's not an emergency, but I don't know. Your SYI or school year initialization for the next year to roll over is contingent upon having that board approved calendar, and we're kind of late. That means the whole rollover setup and the whole process is now pushed back, and it causes some problems because if you don't have an approved calendar, you have to input all that for every school by hand.
But it's a week.
And there's a lot of parents. There's a lot of parents also that have been asking for it because it impacts their daycare schedules, the work schedules, their leave schedules, all of that. And we had it on the agenda back in mid-February, but then it got pulled because there's some tweaks that had. to
It
be
got
done.
pulled then and we didn't have a vote on it then, so I don't understand the difference, but
But
yeah.
we can still have a discussion tonight about I mean, there's nothing preventing us from discussing the calendar and then voting on it.
There's no need to vote in a work session unless it's an emergency. That's my opinion. This, to me, this does not constitute an emergency.
Okay, your opinion is noted, but it's
But
great.
the
It's
the
your
reason I
opinion.
put that on there is because I mean, to what Reagan said, just got EMIS implications. We get a ton of calls, Shelley, Jacob, I mean, just people trying to figure out what the schedules are. ESC's asking for it because we've got busing scheduled. I mean, it's multiple entities across. You know, we tried to put together, and I've got the rationale of the committee. We talked about this before. I went over the rationale at the earlier board meeting of why. And we've got 2 years on the calendar, but we try to do a section of the staff that we highlighted, you know, spring break, what was best for the kids after the Miami County Fair. I mean, there's a lot of things. I don't give you the rationale, but we're just, you know, Jacob gets a lot from communications. We get a lot of phone calls. You know, parents are asking me, BSC's asking me, CTC wants to know. So I didn't think it was a controversial issue. So I put it on there and we can get these people a week ahead of time to lock in a calendar. That's fine. If not, it's fine too. Figure it
Yeah.
out.
But especially since we're already here, so I guess that, and I didn't see anything glaring, because, and again, this is his lane, not our lane. Ours is governed, so just to ensure that all the ORCs are covered, all the school days are covered. There's nothing that's on there that was against, like, the fair in the past. A lot of the community members were against that. I haven't received one comment from any community member about anything on the calendar other than when is it going to be published. And two, there was one concern a while back about the spring break schedules because of the baseball and softball, but that all got taken care of too. And we had these discussions sporadically during the last couple of meetings, because I think Casey even went over it and Damon went over it about, especially the big deal about spring break and stuff like that. So I guess what would you find out in another week that would be other than if it's just because it's on the work session, then I mean, then, like I said, that's just your opinion. We're all within right to vote on it. It was already on the agenda. I mean, is there anything else that you saw on the calendars would,
I'd like to have discussion about it, and I'd like to vote next week.
okay, so we've gone over the impacts. If we wait another week,
I've heard them. Thank you.
you're welcome. Is there, I mean,
And I don't have any questions. I'd just like to add that if it truly was an emergency, then we probably could have had a special meeting. But I also wonder how much more will happen this week when there's Good Friday, Easter, and Good Monday for some people. I mean, I think that if it were an emergency, then we could have had a special meeting. I don't know that 1 week will hurt us that much.
but why would we have a special meeting if we're already here?
Well,
Because
if
they
it
were-
was critical, then, and we felt as a group that it was important enough that we needed to get this done like immediately, then we would have called a special meeting. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm, okay.
And since we didn't, I don't know if, I don't know. I don't know if it hurts to wait 1 more week, is my point.
And my point is, I think it's beneficial to do it now. So like everybody has said about between the EMIS, the calendar schedules, the parents, the community and all those. So I guess that's what be the flip side of that.
You
So,
want to see the rationale?
No, I would just like to take a vote.
Okay.
well, again, I guess I don't see the,
We have a first and a second, so it's time
and
to
then we have the
vote.
And then we
discussion,
have discussion.
right?
Okay.
And so,
It's my understanding, we generally, it's not a rule, but we generally don't vote on things in the work session. It's the time to get work done, but it's not that we can't. And it's not an emergency, but it is pressing. And I've heard requests for the calendar. And I'm not, I don't have my hands in the district a whole lot as much as a lot of other people. So if I'm hearing about it, then it's pressing.
Is it pressing that it can't wait a week, though? I mean, to me, it's different. It would be different if we were gonna wait a whole nother month, you know? But, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it is 7 days, 5 business days. And really not even that because of the holiday, but, you know, again, I think that we should hold work sessions for work and not for voting items.
Okay, we'll
Also-
continue to keep that in consideration, but even go back to Natalie's point, that's all more reason with holiday coming up and Easter and Good Friday and all of that. That's even more reason to do it now so they can get started on all of this.
But Mr. Nutter has already kind of thrown out there that it would be after the fair. So it gives people a general idea of when school's gonna be starting.
Mhm. But again, without it being approved, then they don't know for sure. That's just what's proposed. Does anybody else want to see any of the other impact or hear the impact before we vote?
I would also like just to say one last thing, and I said this I was trying to figure out what month this was, March of 22 at another meeting, that if any board member has a reason that they feel something should be pulled for any reason, we should respect that board member and give them the opportunity to get the questions and answers that they would like to have ahead of time before they make their vote.
But they did get it ahead of time because we received at least the 2-day notice, which we've always been asking for. So we had the 2-day notice. So they were given the time to review it. And then going off of Robert's Rule of Order, the purpose of having the agenda set and in place is so this doesn't happen. So we don't have one person say, okay, well, I don't want to talk about that this week. And now we have to table it. And then it impacts so many other things. So that's why that's why we're taking a vote on this. If the majority of the vote, or if the majority of the board decides to keep it, then we keep it. If the majority of the board decides that it can wait, then we wait.
Call the vote, please.
Was there any more discussion? I just want to give everybody a fair chance to discuss if they have any more input. All right, so we have a motion to amend the agenda to remove the calendar items and table them until, well, you want to table it till next week or you want to just discuss this week?
Just want to move it to discussion and then we can vote on it next week.
Okay, so that's our motion then, to move it to discussion and then vote on it next week. So will you take roll, please?
Mrs. Duskowicz,
No,
Mrs. Butler,
No.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
No,
Mrs. Kipper.
Yes.
okay, so,
I would also like to add, I don't know if it falls under any of these. I just was going to give an update on my facilities committee meeting. It's supposed to be reported out at the next meeting, which would be this meeting. And
What
Did-
is you can talk, when we talk about it at D,
okay,
item D. Under the strategic plan. It's
that's fine.
there.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
okay, now can I get a motion? Is there any other agenda items that people want to remove, modify? So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as it is?
okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Butler second.
Any discussion? You take roll, please.
Mrs. Duskowicz,
Yes,
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
No.
Mr. Lee,
Yes,
Mrs. Kipper.
No.
so we didn't have any that I know of. Do we have any public participation?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Is it for,
Julie. Reed's
okay,
Agenda item question.
Okay, good evening, board. Just want to say there is still a big need for microphones in order to hear the board members, not only while at the meeting, but on the recording. I'm sorry, Jackie, I can barely hear you even now. So, and I go back and listen to the recordings and it's very difficult, Mr. Levy, also sometimes hard to hear on the recording. So hopefully, you guys will get microphones and some speakers in here for future meetings. I'm extremely disappointed about the voting item on the work session agenda. Doesn't seem to be an emergency to me either. The board committed to not vote in work sessions unless it was a true emergency, such as an external deadline is looming. So I did hear there was some impact, but I didn't hear any real impact in there. People asking for it, that's not an impact to me. But my question is this, what if today's meeting had not been scheduled? Would you have called an emergency meeting to approve the calendars? If the answer to that is no, then it could wait until the next meeting. On the agenda, the policies attached do not show the changes, so couldn't tell what was added, modified, or deleted without going back and comparing. So just a couple things, though. I just wanted to say that the middle school policy calls out the smartwatches, but the high school policy does not. Maybe intentional. I'm just saying that seems to be a discrepancy there. I know we were trying to put them more in sync as time went by. Dresses are not listed in the minimum length section, only skirts and shorts are mentioned. You may want to add dresses just to avoid an argument from a student based on the technicality. And I do like that the consequences are spelled out right in the handbook. I think that's good for the students as well as the staff and districts. There's no draft agenda for next week's business meeting. Again, I would encourage you to go back to reviewing it in the workshop for two reasons. One is that it encourages everyone to follow a deadline for submitting items to the agenda. Secondly, it allows the board members to openly discuss the items in a manner that allows all other board members and the community to hear all of the discussion that's happening. And once discussed, it allows time for all board members to think about and consider the pros and cons of an item before having to vote on it. This thought and consideration process can also include further research and gathering input. Having the period between the meetings allows time for the board members to better do their jobs. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Was that it for public participation?
We moved the microphone from over here to the middle, at least for that'll be for the recording.
That helps. Doesn't help me though.
And a mallet. Ooh, the mallet too. That might be really, that's gonna be really loud. Okay, then the next business item is the approval of the 25-26 and the 26-27 school calendars. So can I get a motion to approve both of these school year calendars?
I move.
Can I get a second?
Second,
Any discussion? We take roll, please.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes?
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
No.
Mr. V,
yes,
Mrs. Skipper.
No. And then next we have discussion on the BOE policies. Oh, sorry. Oh, what section are you giving your reporting?
Whenever you tell them, I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh,
Where would you like to go?
I see you should go first.
Okay,
That way they sort of give an overview of what's
Overview.
going on.
so do that now if you like. As I was mentioning, the Ohio School Association of School Business Officials, their annual conference was last week, and we were in attendance at that. As you may or may not know, the House version of the state budget was approved, I believe, last Wednesday. And there's some interesting things in there. The most interesting thing, I would say, that we need to be concerned about, and all school districts need to be concerned about, is a proposal to limit carryover cash balances to 30% of the prior year's expenditures, including transfers, as we understand it. When you look at that statewide, if that were enacted right now, it'd be $5 billion going back out of school district coffers. And the way they would do that is they're going to do it through the budget commission at the local level. It's going to roll back taxes for whatever period of time it takes to get those numbers down to 30%. Now, why are district cash balances high right now? Well, across the state, districts are coming out of COVID funding, ESSER dollars. Those that handled their dollars properly did some offsets to costs in the general fund. Those that didn't ended up on a financial cliff, and that's why our organization that I work with have other customers that do not include you. So this creates a significant problem. What does it mean for you as a Bethel School District? Almost $4 million based upon the November 24 forecast. If that comes out as predicted, that's what the number would be. And going back to the taxpayer. So it limits your ability to do future planning. It makes the assumption that you've got your infrastructure 100% complete. You're certainly a growing district and you have to be concerned with that going forward, and you certainly have financial needs. So, Mike and I will be looking at this. We started discussing this today. We'll work on it more Wednesday when I'm back in town. And it's certainly a concern. We don't know how this will flush out. It started at 25%, it's moved to 30% with the legislature at the House, and that was all in the House. There's going to be a lot of discussion about that one across the state, because there are some big numbers around the state where districts are going to have some significant problem. They've got some significant reserves, and I won't say that reserves can't go down some. There needs to be an easy landing to it, and the way I've always talked to my previous board about that, and that's the way it should have happened with the ESSER funds. View yourself as a jet. Your district's a jet. You want to land that softly on the back wheels and not on the front wheels. And we've seen some districts come in and landed incorrectly, and they end up in some dire financial straits. By and large, the vast majority of districts were able to do some cost offsets. It's going to take a few years for them to have that level out, and every district has a different financial story. What's their local levy cycle? How dependent are they on state dollars versus local? That's something for you to be concerned about as a board. When the state legislature comes in and says, we're going to take away your local dollars, and they're not giving you much in the state dollars as well. Those numbers are quite small in comparison. So, giving you an update on that, and that's something to read through and understand what might happen. Other things that they're doing in the budget proposal: move the 5-year forecast to a 3-year forecast. Why would you do that? And the reason I can figure out you would do that is the final 2 years of the forecast are the worst 2 years across the state. I mean, that's where it's showing the deficits. Legislature doesn't want to see that. They want to chop those 2 years off and say, hey, schools are doing a lot better. And it kind of justifies in their mind what they're doing. There's some other lesser points there about traditional school districts receiving a profit on the resale of school district property. I don't see that being an issue here. And change in unused school facilities. There is a law out there, and it's been out there for some time, that if you're not using for student services the school building for 60% full, they can force you to sell it. I haven't seen that done yet, but it's been out there for, I bet you, a decade at this point. Beyond that, we've started putting together some what I'll call key financial indicators. And the first one I listed for you, and I just picked out a few today, just looking at some things, and I'll give you the CUP report. The CUP report's available out on the Ohio Department of Education website, and it has a whole page full of various student demographic data, property value data, income data, all kinds of things. And you can kind of go through there and look and see how you compare the first column of school district numbers. You'll see is your school district. Then they have what they, at the state level, classify as similar school districts. State determines who those are. Then there's a statewide average for all districts. And then the final 3 columns was nothing more than me going out to your athletic website at the high school and looking at your football schedule today and seeing who are 3 conference teams. And so I figured those might be ones that you would compare to. So no particular magic in that. But the indicators that I give you on the right, income tax collection history, and it's been 2.4 million and change the last 2 years. You're currently sitting at 1.974 million. And you got 1 payment left to go. That payment last year was about $604,000. Came towards the end of April. So it gives you an idea. If that duplicates again, then you'll be up $150,000 from last year, which would be good. We'll see how it plays out. Expenditure per pupil, and I thought this was interesting. And how much do you spend per pupil? And Bethel's at 10,136, and this is FY 24 data, it's the latest stuff they have out there. 10,136, and on an average day ADM of 1,927.5 last year. So your annualized cost would be 19.5 million at Bethel, and that's looking at general fund. And that plays out from what we're seeing. The similar district, though, using their expenditure per pupil times your same ADM, it would cost 28.15 million. So that's just showing you and the taxpayers you're providing a good value for the services that you're getting cost wise. So and then you go to the statewide average, that's almost 31.5 million. So again, your expenditure per pupil and your annualized costs are below average, which is a good value for the taxpayers. Salaries and benefits as a percentage of operating expenditure is always one of those things we like to look at, kind of monitor. You're at 73.34%, similar districts at almost 78%, and state average at almost 79%. You've got a little bit of PI money that's probably helping you a little bit. I wouldn't say a huge amount based upon the percentages there and the dollar amounts, but you don't know that all the other districts have that. And then finally, something we want to bring to you, Jenny, I want to bring to you next week, the financial forecasting software. We talked to the company that's doing that with your monthly reports. And when I started asking about where's the spreadsheets, I didn't get a straight answer. It was like, well, we just, we work with the treasurer and we go over line by line. I go, that's not the answer. I go, where's the spreadsheet? And it doesn't exist. So K-12 Business Solutions is the one in the state that actually has the Excel spreadsheet. There's another one called Frontline. That one gets a little pricey, and just being your interim treasurer, we're not recommending to take you to that one at this time. You got to be fairly advanced to be using that one. Otherwise, you're working with a consultant. Even I work with a consultant on it. I can operate through it, but it's not as user friendly as an Excel spreadsheet. And I think that's one of the things we have to watch as a profession. We need to make sure that especially our newer treasurers are really getting the understanding of how to calculate all the various line items in a forecast. When I came into the business, it was a 2 or 3 day seminar with a gentleman by the name of Dick Maxwell on a 3-ring binder, and you were doing it with paper and pencil, and you took it back and put it on Excel, and you knew how everything worked by the time you walked out of that 3 days later. And so I think we miss a little bit of that when we rely too much on technology, but certainly you do need to have the spreadsheet based one in order to facilitate the process. So that's about $4,700 is what that cost is coming out to. And we'd like to bring that to you for the spring update Monday.
That an annual cost to have the software?
That's the May cost. I'll have to get for the May cost. I'll look and see. We were just concerned about getting May out the door at this point. We knew that'd be a little cheaper. The other one can be upwards of 20,000 for the year, so we didn't want to quite get into that one for you. It's
You know what our current program is?
current program. You're working with a guy by the name of Cajun Keating out of northeastern Ohio, I believe. I know him. I'm just at the conference with him, talking to him. And it's got the reporting piece. I wouldn't say it's necessarily my style, what we're doing right now. I like a fairly straightforward comparison of the spending plan, which is your November forecast. It should be divided out by month, estimated what are the receipts on each line item for the remainder of the year, and the expenditures as well. And it needs to be measured. And it's a fairly simple report. The state software system allows you to do that. And one of the things we are seeing, we talked about common issues that we see in our business line. And again, not necessarily from your district, but it is true, it wasn't here either. In these districts we go into that are in financial straits, they're not measuring the forecast. Now, you guys are trying to do it based upon simply dividing by 12. To me, that doesn't get it, because there's too many things, on too many line items that don't simply divide by 12 in a school district forecast. Real estate taxes, they don't divide by 12. There's 4 months where you're going to actually have some type of receipts and 2 months where you're going to have major receipts in a year. So those things are easy to understand. There's going to be ebbs and flows in salaries, depending upon how you pay supplementals. And then there's going to be trend history on all the other line items. So yeah, that's the way to go about doing those things. We know how to do those things, and that's the way we think you should move going forward. I'm not so much about all the glitz and color on it and graphics. I really want a Board of Education to understand where they are in relation to their forecast. And I mean, I operated a $125 million to $150 million operation with 4 pieces of paper for board for 30 years, and we always knew where we're at. And it was really paying attention to what your fund balance summary was in a condensed version, and paying attention to how that forecast is really operating. If you do those 2 things as a board and administration, you understand them, you react to them, you'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
Any questions?
The, do you know what the current software that we have, how much is that?
I'd have to go back and find out how much they were doing for the actual forecast. We wouldn't be incurring that cost. Your monthly reporting package is like $350. I think we put something new in place for you, and you can kind of go away from that as well. I'm just kind of let it ride right now as we try to take care of everything else.
Sure.
It's not a big cost, but and maybe whoever sits in the chair at the end of the day should be the one to decide that. But I think whoever that is probably going to agree with us on that.
So I guess what I'm hearing is it's kind of just a personal preference kind of a thing, and like what was being used in the past just isn't really
Well, it didn't,
what you're used to or your style, and just maybe not what you would prefer to use.
I need to have control, and I think Jenny would say the thing. I need to have control of being able to go in and interactively model changes and assumptions for a board, for an administration on the fly, especially when you get in negotiations, things like that. And I'm not seeing that with this particular software.
I gotcha. Okay.
I mean, I got some ways to get there, but you do need just a base software that does that for you. Especially when you get into the state funding model, that there was a day and time where we calculate that thing right down to the penny, but it's got so many factors in it now that rely on so many other factors that it gets a little bit tough to do.
We'll talk about a little bit. We talked about advances and transfers. I mean, as far as losing money,
Yeah, I mean,
taking it away from us.
yeah.
We said we'd talk more Wednesday, but I think
Yeah, we'll talk more about that on Wednesday, but the board needs to consider what is the strategy. And all boards right now, looking at the state budget, better be looking at a strategy. How do you keep your financial resources in order to do everything you can for the students? And so I would say between, in the next 30 days, and I mentioned it to Mr. Nutter today, I go, we better make sure we have our capital plan in place. And when I say that, what I'm used to, and I can provide that for it, is by building a spreadsheet that looks out 10 years by a variety of line items. And I'll just call it kind of like a tickler file, but it'd go down, plumbing and HVAC and all kinds of things. Right down to the parking lot, how often does it need to be sealed, which is usually about once every 5 years. You get those things on a schedule, and when you get this whole thing done, you've got an annualized cost. So I did it with 14 or 15 buildings. Certainly be a little easier here to do that. Are your buses You know, is your bus fleet in great shape right now? If not, I mean, if you need to be buying buses, here in the next month would be a good time to go ahead and buy whatever it is you need. If you need 2 or 3, go ahead and do it. Get the purchase order cut, move the money over to a PI fund. It's out of the calculation, that type of thing. We want things to be transparent. And we want to make sure that they are the right things to do. We don't want to spend money just to spend money. I don't agree with that. But you don't want to look back and say, well, gosh, I wish I would have done that. Or wish I would have done this. It does create a pressure, I think, on all districts right now to really make sure that they've got all their I's dotted and T's crossed on all their financial needs that are kind of outside just the normal operating. Yeah, because new staff for next year, that's not going to do it, because this is going to be measured on June 30th this year. So it's stuff basically in about the next 6 weeks.
How do you, how is the district supposed to plan for long-term things like?
Oh, you're not allowed.
buildings
You
and
can't
things like
use common
that?
sense with the state legislation. You are not allowed to do that. You simply don't understand Columbus math, is what I call it. And there is a certain group of leadership down there that is against public education. And they're well known. And it's unfortunate, but they're pushing vouchers at the expense of public schools. And now this is just another way to do it, to create additional pressures on the public schools. Because they'll turn around and say, when you start running out of money, they'll say you're mismanaging. Well, which way do you want it? And I think there's a happy medium. I think there should be in every school district, and I don't know that we necessarily have that here, a cash balance policy that's not only a minimum cash balance policy, what's the maximum? And let's operate in that zone one way or the other. And it's certainly doable. And I know we certainly were able to do it in Hamilton. I didn't really have to worry about minimum balances. My first 3 years there, we borrowed $1.2 million every year and ended up with $1,000 or less unencumbered in the general fund. And I wasn't smart enough to really know that, hey, that's not the best thing to do, but that's the way that culture was. They used the dollars to the best of their ability. And quite frankly, we had no cash flow problems. They had some other funds that allowed us to get that done. So things have changed, certainly in the last 30 years, and you've got to do things differently and be ahead of the game on your financial planning. Because when I walked in the door there, financial forecast didn't exist as a state law. And that was before their time.
So to what Rachel was saying, so then what do we look at going forward? Because we've got a new school.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all
I mean,
these,
so what do we do?
I mean, first of all, as far as the maintenance plan, buildings should be maintained at peak performance. There's been an investment by the community in new buildings, so they need to be properly maintained. Buses, again, as I mentioned, they should be bought on a regular basis.
And to your point on the buses, so Jake and I have been working on the fleet schedule. We know we bought a couple buses, but we've got buses that are 300,000 miles.
And you're growing.
Yeah, so we're growing. So we're working on that, and we're working on, Todd and I have met several times for multiple hours on what that looks like moving forward from a capital plan, so to speak. But that's all going to roll into the strategic plan. But like I said, this has been a few challenges here or there along the way, and some things have eaten up some time. But Todd and I have been working on that as well, on that capital spend down plan. I just thought it was important to hear from Bob about, I mean, within the last couple of weeks, it pretty much gutted the formula.
Oh, the formula doesn't exist. It's in the law. Then it says, the very next sentence says it forbids the Ohio Department of Education or DEW from making payments based upon the formula. And it gives them all these other things to do, which basically is another bridge. So
So that's what prompted the conversation today with Bob and I about advances versus transfers and some of those.
Yeah.
things. How do we protect the money that we have
Mhm.
and still be able to use it in the future without them taking it?
And the advances, advance versus transfer, well, transfers, once it's done, it's pretty much done. Advance, you get next year to kind of figure it out. You're going through a transition here. I want to make good decisions that they should be made, based upon what's going on. And good use of the money, but just in the event that they backpedal, you may have a different opinion on how you would spend that money. So that's where the advance comes in. Because the advance, you can, next year, you can flip it right back. There's no problem with that. We'll have to see, does the legislature put something in on that? I wouldn't be surprised. Because they're already kind of talking about it out there at the legislative level.
The Senate, right?
The Senate's gonna be, yeah, it's moved over to the Senate now, but even at the House level, they were, I had someone tell me at the conference, they said, the legislators said, well, the treasurers will just hide the money. I said, no, we don't hide money. I go, the legislature makes decisions, and I go, then we use our good sense and creativity to work within the bounds of what they pass. Now, they may or may not agree with what that is, but we always stay within what the law is on there, and that's just a normal process. There's going to be ways to work any situation from both sides.
I just wanted you to be aware of that because it's moving fast. Yeah, $4 million is $4 million.
Yeah.
I don't want to see us lose.
Do we
it.
know when the Senate vote, when the
It would have to be
projected Senate vote is?
For some-
Well, usually it's before June 30th.
Okay, so,
I'd make a sizable bet it's not before June 30th, because if I'm the legislature, it's going to be June 30th, maybe first week of July. That being said, they are running ahead of schedule.
so we need to contact them.
Yeah, this would be the time to contact legislators and say, hey,
We need our 4 million.
well, it's, yeah, you hire, we go to the polls every 2 years and we elect either 2 or 3 board members in a school district. And that's what you're here for, is to make those decisions. I don't know that we need Columbus making those types of local decisions for any of the 611 or 12 school districts in the state of Ohio. Because they all have a different set of circumstances. And what's right for one is not necessarily right for the other. And that's, now is the time to bend their ear and say, hey, this is too far.
I mean, when you look at Miami East compared to us, we're like $4,100 less per pupil, and over the years you save this money and it disappears.
And that's why I give you some of those factors in that letter. I mean, you can take that cost per pupil number and that data and craft a letter to a legislator or sit there and talk to them if you know them personally and say, hey, we're already a good value. We don't need you coming in here and taking our financial resources and making it difficult on the district.
Or it already looks like we're doing a pretty good job keeping things going at an exceptional level for our kids, and to lose that 4 million is
Not good.
no.
Questions from Bob? All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now we're on to BOE policies.
Yeah, so we want to talk about the personal communication devices. I know you said there was, we wanted to have this conversation so we get this however we decided to go and get this out there. So it was publicized across the community so they know what the expectation is next year. I know depending on what happens at state level, they may ban them anyway, but I know that we were leaning towards, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were leaning towards banning all the communication devices K-12, which I'm fine with. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then we'll start to get that communicated out. Because the bigger issue is not gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be the kids, I think it's gonna be parents.
Mhm.
That's been my biggest
Yep.
issue this year.
Mhm.
It's been the parents. They feel that they should be able to contact their kid at any time of the day. They're safe here, you know, if they need to get a hold, they can call the office,
Yeah.
or if we need to get a hold of them, we can call them. So. I mean, I'm okay with that. I think it should be all communication devices. I mean, you got smartwatches and, you know, all those other things, but I don't think we should necessarily collect them at the door in one huge bag, like some schools do that, and then they break, and then we're liable, and then you gotta find them at the end of the day. But I mean, we'll find a way to manage that, but they just can't be used. I mean, that's gonna be the iPods and the headphones and,
Watches.
Yeah.
I mean, you go by, you know, it's like. We tried an experiment this year where elementary doesn't use it, you know, middle school, high school will use it at lunch, you know, it doesn't work. They leave lunch with them on, and they get to the end of class and they say, well, if you're done with all your work, you can use your phone. Well, every kid that's a teenager is gonna be
Done with work, yeah.
and be on their phone. So, don't disagree with that at all. I mean, you know, majority of my disciplinary issues come from social media. You know, the SROs and myself and Jason and, you know, the staff, they do a nice job of monitoring that. But we can only monitor what comes through the school devices, not their personal devices. So we're usually left with the aftermath of situations that have happened on their personal devices, and then we deal with that. So, I mean, things still happen over the weekend. I got called 11 o'clock on a Saturday night about something that happened. We dealt with it that night, and, you know, it was all right. But those are the things that, you know, the things that happen that people don't see. You know, I don't disagree with the thought process on that. So I'm all for it. Just want to make sure we're all for it. You're gonna get a lot of calls probably. I'm gonna get a lot of calls. It's okay too.
I think one of the things that came out of the policy committee when we all met was that everybody was pretty on board. You know, that the cell phones are more of a problem. And actually, it was just weird because this past weekend, I saw several different things online and on TV just about how schools that have banned them have had,
Better.
have had really positive effects from that. And the students are now saying, hey,
They like
This
it.
is
it's
great.
refreshing to not feel connection.
Yes.
Right. Circle. I don't need this thing in
They
my hand.
talk
Talk
to
to each other.
people.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
I personally, I think that I'd like to keep it open to looking into the pouches to lock them up, just as
So how do
a,
those work exactly? Do you know, like, are they in classroom? How does the yonder patch work?
so I think this,
'Cause I
so,
don't know for sure. That's why I was
so
asking.
it sounds like the students lock them up, but they have them,
Okay,
and then they're unlocked at the end of the day. But there are others where maybe they're gathered in homeroom and then they return to homeroom before the end of the day and they're unlocked there. So there's a couple different strategies for that.
so the kids can lock them up in a pouch and take them with them all day?
They have it, but it's locked, yes.
Who has the key to it? How do they unlock it?
The administration, isn't it?
They're magnetic, it takes a magnetic,
It's
key
like the
to
retail
unlock
theft
it,
things, you know?
and you can make them power them
Got it.
off, they have to power them off when they put them in.
Yeah, they
there.
have to be powered off.
And you
Okay.
put them in there and it's supposed to prevent them from being able to use it, but it's a magnetic lock and it's a special magnetic key that unlocks them.
Mhm. And the kids have to tap it to get their phone out. Yeah, so it was interesting. I found WAPOC had a pretty good policy on it.
Mhm.
That I felt like kind of hit on all the things like, you know, if you lose it, if you destroy it, you know, kind of stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. I definitely think it's one of those things with the cell phones or really any type of policy, like you kind of have to come down and draw the line and not allow that to be crossed so that everybody's following it and there's not exceptions. I mean, obviously there's the students that need them for medical reasons, but other than that,
An
It's
IEP.
not a discretionary, at a teacher's discretion or, you know, to Jackie's point, I thought was really good in that if a teacher says they need their cell phones for, I'm just using your book as as, you know, an example, but like, they shouldn't have to be using their personal devices for that. They should be given something to use. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I just think if Fairborn can do it and they're,
exactly.
Dayton does
and
it.
Dayton does,
And
I
they put them in
mean.
milk crates.
Yeah, Dayton does. I know Dayton's had a lot of problems with
Yeah.
breakage and liability and everything. That's
Well,
why I
they put it in milk
asked.
crates. In a vanilla folder, I mean.
But you know, if these schools
But I
that
just-
are so much larger than ours can pull it off, I mean,
Oh, I know we can do it.
We
I
can
just
do
wanna know the best way to do it. I'm all for it. I think they're horrible. I think.
My fear though is if you just say they have to be powered off,
That doesn't work.
that's, you know.
They need to be
Right.
isolated, put away some.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
But not in their
Yeah.
locker, because then, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, and then they're down to,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't-
Exactly.
we-
It doesn't,
we-
that doesn't work.
We've proven that the
Right.
locker does not work.
Tried everything, tried to give them a lunchtime, you know.
You can't.
Right.
no.
And we said the teachers have to be on board with this too, because it's not going to work
100%.
if every class, then like, okay, if you guys have all your work done, you can get your phones out. Well, who's gonna say, okay, I'll just wait until I get all this homework
Yeah,
done?
and you know, we can talk to the staff too, but you know, the staff has to understand that this is bell to bell, right? And
Yeah.
and the other thing too is staff can't be sitting there on their phone when we tell the kids
Correct.
not
We
to.
also
Right.
That's
discussed
exactly,
that.
yeah, that was
Yep.
something else we.
Staff
we
members are
discussed.
texting their friends. I'm like, "I never read it." So,
And we did say that, like, we understand that parents are gonna have some pushback, but arguing to have the kid have a phone is a reactive measure versus a preactive measure to some sort of event. So one is gonna jam up all the cell service. So now we can't call 911 because Johnny and his mom and everybody else is calling to see if they're okay.
yeah, you know, it's like when they had the fire here, it's a perfect example, right? I mean, we handled that, but it was more chaos created, not that it was horrible, but there was
Correct.
more chaos created from kids on their phones.
Yeah.
Yes,
Where
Versus,
if we were just locked down.
just
on
pay
that.
attention and
versus
then,
when we had the fire, when nobody had a cell phone.
right. you just
And
listen
they
to the
just
bell
walked
and- right.
outside and goofed around on the playground until everybody
It was
came.
just
Yeah.
like any other fire drill or whatnot.
When
Mindy.
Fairborn did theirs, they did the high school first. And then they're starting to trickle it down into the, middle school, but I don't think it's all the way through it yet.
So I don't think it'll be an issue at the elementary.
No.
No,
No.
And
No, but I think there's probably more elementary kids that have phones than you have any idea
Oh, that's
about.
probably true.
Well,
Well,
they do,
but they're not using
Using
If
them.
we see them, we'll take them.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And they don't really.
They-
They're very strict.
yeah, but I think since we're one building, we just kind of have to apply the policy.
Right.
Just rip the Band-Aid off and
Right.
Just district wide.
just
Yeah.
do it.
It,
But I don't think elementary is nearly as impacted
And
as,
my nieces and nephew go to Fairborn, so I can talk to them. and
Yeah.
say, Hey, exactly how does that work?
Yeah,
I'm
if you
asking my
would,
friend
yeah.
right now.
I will
You could-
contact them and see what he says.
yeah.
cause
know, right?
I
So I'm
was,
curious if we get help from the state just by the law, right?
Well, they made the law, but
right.
unfunded mandate
Yeah.
always happen.
I envision it like TSA, as they come in the doors, they get collected or they get inserted in their pouch. And then also twofold, then we can also look at the dress code, because what we're hearing is like some guys or male principals, male teachers are afraid to dress code a girl because like, oh, you were looking at me or this or that. This is all done right when you walk through the front door. You're either in check or you're not. And then you can go about your day and
Mhm.
start the school
Yeah,
day.
'cause I think that policy, I mean, we would do. Make sure we got all the statutes in it through Neola and then
Mhm.
crafted how we want it here
And it-
for our community.
And it would just be during the school day, so they can have them
We
for
need to have
practice
after
or,
school, right?
yes.
Athletics
So if
and
they have
extracurriculars,
practice, exactly,
need
or
ride.
drama or whatever, yes,
Yeah.
after the end of the duty day, school day or whatever that.
But I just, I just want to make sure that we get what we need to lock it down.
Yeah.
The appropriate
Yeah.
manner and make sure we
Yes.
communicate it to staff.
And I think
community.
it should be all electronic devices, including the watches
Mhm.
and the earphone, you know.
The headphones are the same thing. I see a kid walking down with earpods in, or I'm like, or headphones, you try to
No,
talk to them, they can't hear you.
Right,
You're not
so if their
listening.
phone is powered off inside that pouch,
Yeah.
they shouldn't work, right? I mean,
They
cause it's
shouldn't.
Bluetooth connected, so then that should eliminate that whole
If your
problem.
watch is in watch mode, it shouldn't work either.
Right,
Yeah.
They do use them for their Chromebooks and that, because there are activities and lessons we do where they have to listen to it. So, you know, that'd be the only time they really would need them.
right, and it'd be in that class and,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Off their watches or the Chromebook?
No, the
The
earbuds,
Earbuds.
AirPods
The
and the
AirPod.
Chromebook.
cause they can't have the wired anymore, right? Because now we don't have the jacks in the Chromebooks to,
Some of our older ones do have the USB port still, but a lot of the newer ones are starting to go away from that, so that's, everything's going Bluetooth.
But maybe are we providing the headphones,
No.
AirPods, they bring their own?
Students bring their own.
So I think that's I think that's a question for Jacob. I mean, like mine has the
USB.
headphone jack.
Yeah, mine does.
It might
Yeah,
be.
but no, what I'm saying is some of the newer ones, because technology's starting to go
I agree,
away
but
from
is there a way
ports.
to get an adapter that it would fit into one of these, that you could plug the earphones, you know, a wired set of earphones into a different type of jack?
I don't think we want to deal with that. I wouldn't.
Well, I just think, again, I think it goes back to the slippery slope kind of thing. But, again, I think that's maybe a question for the technology
Yeah, I just
guy.
wrote myself a note, check for the technology department. how to
Yeah.
do it. You can check with Northmont too. I am curious how they do all that. Do they do all of them?
Who?
Where you're
Fairborn.
Fairborn and me?
I don't know, I'm on top of my neck.
I'm just curious if they do all
Yeah,
communication devices.
so, thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Problem solver, problem solver.
Love the way he can see a problem and
Takes
fix
charge,
it.
yeah.
That's why we love you, Mr. Lee.
And then we also said too, by having phones, another argument for, like, or I don't want to say against the parents, but it's also a safety issue. If you're trying to hide from, say, a shooter, because I think that's where the concern lies with the parents, you can't have all these cell phones ringing and the lights going off on their phones and stuff like that. So those are some of those,
And we have the SROs, like we have to update our safety plan this year. It goes every 3 years, right? I updated all the contact sheets and what I was supposed to do when I got here last year, but I've got the SROs working on the, you know, the safety plan we have to turn in, which will be revamped, and they're looking at all that, you know, with the SWAT team and, you know, all the,
Yeah,
they're experts and they're looking at that and redoing that, which is a huge undertaking. But to your point, you know, that's gonna be part of that plan. We don't need everybody, you know, texting everybody else and calling everybody else.
yeah. And we discussed there's phones in the classroom if the emergency arises or
Yeah,
you have
got a
to.
phone.
Yeah, there's a phone in every classroom, there's a phone in the front office, there's people, there's runners, they can run
And they
down to the
said that
class.
it can dial out if need be, so
With
the
The
phones, their
phones in the
phones.
classroom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I use it all the time.
Well, I mean, not you, of course, not now.
Andy calls me internally on my phone. Yeah,
So it was a good discussion though that we
It
had.
really was.
really was.
It was good, and it was good to hear it from, I mean, like, it was a great group, because we had a teacher, we had a parent, we had myself and Jackie, so, I mean, we kind of had a lot of different views. I mean, you know, old fuddy-duddy views on my end or whatever, but, you know, so I think we got a good variety
Good.
of
Well,
input.
and that's helpful for me and all of us, right? What was the parent, what was their biggest concerns, or where would they lay at? Where are they at in all this?
No, I
You're
think they
board
were-
members.
They
teacher.
were all for it.
But-
Absolutely, everybody was for it. I think, you know, the one person was kind of like, well, you know, and it's like,
No.
no, you know, and then when you start talking about, they all have a phone, they all can, you know, can get a hold of somebody, they can go to the office. I mean, Lord, that's what we always did, you know? You had a runner and you could take this note to Johnny,
See,
you
Yeah,
know?
right.
see, I think scores would go up, I think.
Mhm.
Oh,
I-
It's proven they can
I
have
think
all the
climate
stats.
and the atmosphere would just be better.
Yes.
Kids will
Kids will,
learn to
you know,
communicate.
Kids
will
talk.
Yeah.
kids will maybe find new friends because
Mhm.
they have to talk to people.
There was a video on the Today Show, I think it was, and they actually interviewed Dayton Public and they got
Mhm.
interviews with the kids and
So,
they all say that they didn't like it at first. They admitted to that, but give them about 2 weeks and they were They
But you
were,
have to take it out of the kids' hands, right? That way they don't get. to
Oh,
make a
yeah.
Choice, they
Yeah.
probably appreciate
Yes.
that in the long
Yeah.
run.
now I have had one parent, whenever this comes up in just like general conversations, because we do things together and stuff. And she always argues, but if I want to get hold of my kid, I want to make sure I can get hold of my kid. But again, the rebuttals are the ones we just talked about. That it's not, it's
And you
it's
can't.
less safe.
Call the
Right, you
office.
can, yes, yes, you
Why,
don't.
why does she need to get a hold of her? I mean, like, my parents never got a hold of me when I
No.
was in school.
And quite honestly,
And if
now
they
with this
did, I was
parent,
probably in trouble.
I think a lot of it is more convenience.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I'm guilty of it too. I'll send a text to my kids thinking that they're going to get it
Shame
at
on you.
lunch. And then I get a reply.
At
like,
9:30,
Uh-huh. And then I look at their little chart and what class they're supposed to be in.
it's like, get off the
And then I was
phone.
like, why are you on your phone? And then it's just a trickle effect. But then I get a call. Well, we unlocked my phone because I'm in this class and they said that we can be on our phones now because all of our work is done. Well, there's got to be something else you can be doing other than that. So,
Oh, yeah, there's always something else you can be doing
Right.
that's more productive. I just, yeah, like I said, my biggest fight this year so far was with a parent over cell phone.
I'm
Mhm.
sure.
but I think
Go
we
down
can make,
and Remove from the high school,
Mhm,
take them outside,
Mm-hmm.
that's
and it
crazy.
continued out there, and I said, I'm gonna call the police.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was over cell phone.
Dysregulated adults
Yep.
are.
I
are
think we can
difficult to-
make very good arguments about, for the safety of the students, that it's better to not have cell phones on hand than it is. It's like what is the escape hatch of a submarine? It's only there to make mamas feel good. It's not gonna save anybody, but they
Well,
just think that it's gonna
I just
save
think,
them.
bullying, you know,
That
uh,
too, yes.
I think, you
It
know,
happens.
Mhm.
I think all of those, just think of how many issues we've had where somebody had a cell phone and sent something that they shouldn't have,
Mhm.
and if you're not tempted, if you don't have the wherewithal, then you've completely avoided that whole situation, and it just has saved the kid, diffused a situation, and life goes on, and they're not tempted,
Mhm.
you know?
And in this way too, we think that we have enough time to roll out the policy before school starts.
Oh, yeah,
And then-
definitely have enough time. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It gives us time, you know, as staff
To get ready.
to
Mhm.
educate,
Mhm.
and then what's the best way to implement,
Mhm.
and then have that detailed out before school starts,
Mhm.
so everybody knows.
Yep.
Yep.
And you can't have like, and I'll just use this, I don't think, I would hope nobody would do this, but like, if your parent works here, you can't run to your parent and get your phone.
You would
and-
hope,
and use
Oh,
it.
yeah.
You would hope, right?
but somebody will.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, that goes back to everybody being on board, you know, and everybody going, no, you can't do this.
Right.
So my friend from Fairborn said that they don't have a problem with the watches. Now she's middle school, so anyway, she said they only allow one earbud. I don't know
Yeah.
how that's
Mhm.
gonna happen, but anyways, but, she said, but that's not in hallways and in class, only when teacher permits. But she said limiting the phone has been a game changer. Their first offense is parent pickup, second is in-school suspension, third is out-of-school suspension, and fourth is 3 days out of school. But she says we rarely get there.
And that was the other thing that
And she
we,
said it's been a game changer.
and that was the other thing we talked about was discipline, that, because the suggestion was a whole laundry
It's
list. of-
ridiculous.
Like,
It was
hug
like
them first and tell them
27
where they've gone wrong.
27
and-
tries.
Right, yeah, and
Crazy.
on the 30th, we're like, no, I mean, some wanted a verbal warning first, and after that, it's like ones you just rattled off.
It's like, let's just
Mhm.
shut that down
I mean,
quick.
it's gotta be cold turkey, it's
Yeah.
gotta be,
Yeah,
you just have to, you do, I mean, how many people are successful, just I'll only smoke 5 cigarettes today? No,
Right.
you just gotta throw them away and
Right.
just deal
From
with,
Monday, I'll start my diet.
yeah.
okay. Except I'm all for it. I mean, I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page, and
Tidal wave's coming, but
Mhm.
we're going to
Well,
high ground.
The state might beat us to it, and then we don't have to. I don't know how fast that'll move through, but.
so why don't so for the policy itself, we'll go through this at committee. January, we'll go through the committee and just put it all in that we want,
Mhm.
and come up with I'd like to come up with what is it that we're going to do with them? Like, how do we store them?
Mhm.
Or
You know, for the
process.
communication piece, right?
Mhm.
but
Yeah, so,
we've got some time. That's what I'm.
yeah, she said that the kids, what'd she say? Kids keep them. She said the kids at Fairborn
That's what I
keep
thought they
them.
do.
But you could task the committee and ask each of us to go and solicit friends or schools or districts or
I still
whatever.
don't- What maybe it's still stupid, I'm having, don't comment.
I mean, comment.
I don't understand why they take the password and get, they unlock it and get in their phone.
No, the
Well,
kids
it's a
can't.
certain
It takes a
magnet.
special
Who
magnet.
has that magnet?
Well, it could be in the
You
front
would have-
office, it could be,
You get like, each teacher would have to have one, because at the end of the day, how are you gonna get them unlocked?
That's what I was,
Mhm.
okay, so.
Yeah.
but that's what I was thinking,
First
that-
period teacher, last period
Yeah.
teacher.
They forget to do it.
or
They're
the
on the
TS, or the TSA
Or
check.
the TSA method.
Well, the
Well,
TSA
if
method.
they break them or lose them, they have to pay. for it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
well, like I said, that
And they're
Wi-Fi
like-
had a good.
Only from $29 to $50 a piece.
Mhm. But that's where if you had the
I think about
TSA checkpoint
$30
in and
piece
out,
on
it's the
it.
same way. They enter and you collect them and then they exit.
It wouldn't take
Yeah,
that long.
it's,
I just was curious how they
it's just
did
a
it.
pouch and then it just snaps at the.
And then if they have to leave early or whatever and stuff, then they just go
Take
to
it with
wherever and.
Yeah,
Now,
take
the
it to the
problem we
office.
have, I'll be honest, the problem we have with smartwatches at the elementary for like fifth grade and fourth grade, they'll sneak in the bathroom because they have a line to it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a line, if you owe on it, you have to have a line, and they will text or communicate with their parent. So we've had
So it's
few
just like a
issues with
phone,
that.
isn't it?
Yeah, but that's why we say it had to be on,
But if your
watch
phone's,
mode, but if they're caught, there's consequence. It's just like a phone. If you're caught doing it, then it's this.
Right.
don't they have to have a phone if they have a watch?
No,
Oh.
no, because when I had my smartwatch,
Yeah, you can get
because I
stuff.
owed on it, I could get a separate line on it.
Oh,
But the thing is, it just has to follow cell phone policy.
right.
Mhm,
And that'll
Because
be
if a
outlined.
parent calls or says, well, my child just emailed me or texted me,
mhm.
da.
Well,
Well, then obviously
busted.
they're misuse of.
It seems like it's easier just to collect everything.
and so is that
Yeah.
run off a cell phone line? Is that watch like on a,
Yeah, if you
cell
get
phone line?
cellular data
You
on
put
them.
the watch in the bag too?
Yeah.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So all your electronics just go.
You build
okay,
it in.
kid,
Yep.
Put it all in here.
So
You
that-
need more than one, there's something wrong.
You put it in one bag, you got a problem.
And if you find your burner phone, don't put the burner phone. Those kids will have done that, but they get caught, and then that's when you gotta have that consequence. That's
Yeah.
gotta be
Yes.
Right.
consistently enforced.
Every
Well, that
time.
video showed them hide them in sandwiches. They were putting the phone in a sandwich when they
Oh,
went through the
good grief.
entrance at the school. I guess there's a will, there's a way, but for the most part, start disciplining them or start having the parents run out here all the time to come get it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
mean-
that's what I was getting, the procedure, right? It's like,
Right.
I got no problem with the policy. That's an easy one. Everything goes in a bag, right? Okay. Now
Mhm.
procedurally, what's the steps when,
Yep.
somebody's gotta leave
So I,
work
And
or.
clearly outlined, so everybody, and then we thought, can you put it on final forms at the beginning of the school year? So
one
everybody
that
can initial
has-
saying, yes, I understand. This,
Well,
this,
that's
and this
part of
will
the
happen.
handbook.
They
They
lock,
send
but
that
they
off,
have
so.
these
Okay,
stations where you,
Yeah.
put it and you just walk
You
by
just
and
walk
swipe
by
it.
and- Yeah, absolutely.
what's that? What is
Well,
it?
I mean,
there's one that has like, it locks magnetically, but they have these stations, so you could put them out on a desk. You could have 3 or 4 or 5, and the kid just walks by and swipes it, and it pops it open as they're on their way out, or locks it on their way in. But,
Would we wanna have maybe like a
I think-
yonder
yeah,
rep
I'm
come
just
and brief
wondering
us?
if we-
yeah,
Could we
Yeah.
do that?
is yonder, or, I always
I mean,
like
that
a
seems
little
to be the-
competition, just to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know who else does them.
right. But if
There's
somebody
one
else
called
does it,
New Case,
get a couple
yeah.
different options. I don't know, would Jason maybe know?
I was gonna say, yeah.
Could he give us a couple of options of, and then
yeah,
maybe
I
have him
just wrote
come
that
brief?
down. I have
Mhm.
technology, like, this is not my expertise, obviously.
Mhm. And we have, I mean, technology committee could also.
Yeah,
Yeah, cause I don't know what all's out there, but, I like it. Like the
Mhm.
idea and the concept, but
Mhm.
I just wanna make sure it's airtight when we
Mhm.
send it out.
Yeah,
So everybody
right.
knows.
And then we follow
Right.
through.
We're consistent on the delivery.
That gives parents and teachers and administrators, it gives everybody
everybody.
time to understand, hey,
Do the what if drill, what if this,
I
what if
think
that?
most teachers would agree, they're a pain for them,
yeah,
Mhm.
you know? I mean,
Yes.
I met
Fort
Nick,
Wayne
I had a long meeting with Nick over at
Oh, okay.
CTC, and he was like, what do you do with cell phone policy? I said, we're probably gonna ban them. And he said, yeah, I figured, he goes, it makes sense, but you know, where he's in, the world he lives in, he's like, I have a hard time doing that because of your tech side, right? When they need to use them and they're out to work and things, well, that's different. It's your building, you do what you gotta do, but I said, from our end, I said, we're probably gonna ban them. And I don't think that, I think that's probably gonna be several schools in the county that, then when I talked to them with the superintendents,
I agree. I think it's gonna be more that do that
that don't.
than don't.
Yes.
No, I would agree with you. I think it's time to draw the line in the sand and
Mm-hmm.
take it back, so.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're on the same page. I will get with technology on option, not a store, and those types of things. And at the next policy meeting, we'll start to revamp that one. And then, any other questions on the communication devices then?
Mm-mm.
So, and you brought up, dress code, and I wasn't there. What was you still want to talk about dress code?
Well, so that was another thing we had just kind of talked about briefly, kind of at the end of our policy meeting, in that it was something that we felt strongly that also needed to be addressed and looked at, for consistency and for
Realistic.
enforcement,
Mhm.
because what we have is not enforced, and so those things kind of had some overlap. But I think that there was, again, a strong sense that it needed to be revisited.
And a little bit more clear cut, so not the fingertip test if you're standing on, a box or whatever, and if it touches that, either they're at the knees, above the knees, below the knees, whatever. No holes above the knees, no tank tops, don't worry about the width of the strap on your shoulder. Those are some examples.
Okay.
And then address dances separate, because dances would be a little bit separate, so it'd be okay to have a spaghetti strap on their
Yeah,
dress and
although-
stuff like that, and be a little bit more
There's a
lenient.
lot of Tucci mama looking.
But you
going
can't,
on.
I'm telling you, can, for those dances, you can't find.
Yeah,
Watch me.
We're gonna have to get somebody to sew them.
when you told me dress code, I cringed. About this for 30 years, right? It's like, you can never find, it's like, it's interpretation.
I mean,
right? Some people's arms are longer than others.
Everybody
Like,
wants to say their kid has long arms. It's like, I
Right, and
didn't
nobody's
realize we
gonna
had that many
measure 3
orangutans
inches.
around here. but-
Right, and nobody's gonna measure that, and if you're taller or got longer fingers or whatever and stuff, it's like, but the knee is right there. If
Yeah,
if it touches the knee, then it's fine. If it doesn't, then it's not,
We
or,
always wanted it to be respectful. We wanted to, don't
Right,
show
yes,
undergarments.
right.
That kind of stuff.
no
but-
holes above the knee, no booties hanging out, no boobs hanging out, all that stuff. So, I mean, just more clear, it
Okay.
doesn't have to have a whole bunch of rules, not, we don't need
Part
tape
of that's just
measure.
enforcement, but I know, like
A
I said.
lot of
Yes.
it is enforcement, but a lot of it is also like, we talked about this last year. If it's in the policy, we need to follow it,
Right,
so.
and that's why we thought, well, if we do the TSA checkpoint type of thing, you can get it all in one swoop. All at the same time, and then,
Because the elementary is always has always been good about, I mean, dress code. I mean, it's always been,
right. And shoes came up too, about whether they have to
Shoes,
be,
yes,
closed-toed or
sandals
yeah,
and,
or
flip-flops
closed-toed,
and
straps on the back or whatever.
slippers.
Crocs.
Yeah.
and- I know slippers.
Because you think about, so if there was an emergency, we don't need somebody trying to run out of a building in flip-flops and stuff like that, so,
Mhm.
Okay.
so those are.
So
Just-
stop wearing your flip-flops, Mr. Nutter.
Yeah, I know, I got so many.
I guess you just think like almost business casual, I wanna say business, but along,
Safe, I mean, like, they need to be safe if they have to run out of the building.
Right.
Or
or evade if there is a school
something.
shooter
Yeah,
and
I
stuff,
mean,
we
they
don't
have to
need
be able to do
flip-flops
that.
going everywhere and Crocs and stuff,
Safely.
and.
Okay,
And I don't wanna see pants that have holes like in the entire length of the leg.
That's what I'm
of
saying,
that
if they have
shoe.
holes in the knees and below, that should be fine, no, above the knee, not, and then the knee is the
See,
metric.
I've often thought of uniforms.
Oh, we had
Let's
that,
do it.
we
I mean-
had that discussion years and years
Uh-huh.
ago.
I'd be all
I
right
don't follow with public schools in uniform.
with-
Dayton does it.
Mhm.
the need for trust policies.
Exactly. I mean,
What color of pant, what color of shirt for the.
You can call them right.
Khaki, black, or.
Right.
And there's leverage if you want out of uniform day, we're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
not bad. And you can sleep later, cause
You don't
it's
have to
gonna
worry about
be
what you're gonna
khaki
wear.
instead of polo. You
Right.
you don't have to spend a lot of time putting your outfit
Well,
together. You can sleep
Yeah,
that
sounds like
extra
it's a bright
20
idea,
minutes.
Right, I know what I gotta wear tomorrow, it's perfect.
Mhm.
Same thing every day.
It's on my floor, right by my bed, my khaki.
And then on the same lines as what we talked about with the cell phone, that there shouldn't be any like conditions that a principal can approve or whatever, that you'd have to go through him. Because one, I don't think anyone ever goes to him and say, tomorrow I'd like to wear this because of X, Y, and Z. Can I do it? So I don't think it should be up to it just whatever's in our dress code policy,
This is the dress code.
that's what it. And then also like for pep rallies and stuff, if they wear their jersey, and if a jersey for some reason, or like the volleyball uniforms, I know they have short shorts. If they wear the uniform to school, that would be one of the exceptions where if the volleyball team is wearing it for.
I don't think they need to wear their shorts.
Or maybe not,
They can
whatever.
wear their regular, they
I'm
can wear
just-
their
yes.
jersey, but.
Just using
I
that
mean,
as
I
an
kind of feel
example.
the same way though about like even the cheerleading uniforms. It's like they should meet the dress code policy. Like they don't have to be so short that they can't bend over,
Hmm.
you know? I don't know.
Right, but that was just an example of that, those exceptions would be listed,
Okay.
so no pre-approval for anything would be necessary.
So we'll talk about that and we'll look at it and then both of those. And get them on, so there's ahead of time, so the expectations set over summer, going into August, that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good, thanks.
Good talk. Thank you.
Yeah, good conversation. And like I said, I'll get with technology on storage and some of those things. I don't know what all's out there. Okay, the May 6th, so there's been conversation and discussion, so I've spent some time with Dave Fisher. I don't know if you guys know Dave.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Was that?
Yes.
Who is he?
Okay, so anyway,
I don't know.
He lives in the
so
corner.
anyway,
Okay.
His house was
He's-
wiped out by a.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
he's Miami County Executive Director of Board of Election. That, anyway, we've had conversation and, my question is, how did we end up with it in the schools and how did we, it used to be at the church and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth on that. And, so I don't know if you know this or not, but so, Matt Crispin, Matt, right?
Mhm.
So Matt Crispin and, Lori Sebastian had met with the, Board of Elections and that's when they decided to have it here. And supposedly the entities, if it's a private company or a church, and he sent me the higher revised code. They can tell them that they don't want them there any longer. However, if you receive taxpayer dollars, which we do as schools, they can dictate to us when they want to be here, they're gonna have elections here. And since we're the only place in town that fits that requirement to get big enough to vote, that's why they're here. I said, okay. They're in Miami East and Covington. I mean, they're in 4 schools across the county. I said, got it. But what I wanted to know was, I don't want to just necessarily put on the calendar, and he agreed with me that, you don't want to just blanket, we're closed these days. I mean, we closed in November because we didn't really know what was going to happen in November, right?
Mhm.
But, for May 6th, we had a long conversation about it, and we said that for May 6th, elementary will be in session as normal, because we won't be anywhere near elementary. And he goes, and I talked to Barrett, and we can just do the remote learning for middle school and high school on the 6th. And, all staff report. The moving forward and next year, he goes, there's legislature being looked at but not passed, where they can't change the election days. And he said before, sometimes they move dates on primaries and things like that, because they don't want people to vote on certain things or, because whatever games that they all play down there. He said that's why he recommended not putting it in. So Because we think, you'll have next May. Since the governor's turned out, we'll have a primary probably, right? I mean, that'll be a busy time, but I think we can address them as we go. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I just don't think, we were fine on that one day. It was supposed to be a special and it got
Yeah.
canceled. We communicated it out. I never even got a phone call about it, so it seemed to be okay.
Mhm.
But that is the rationale behind, so we'll do the remote learning, and I told Jacob, after I talked to you all tonight, we'll get that out there, because people were asking, because but I don't think that's gonna be an issue at all. And then we obviously have the renewal levy on that, will be on that ballot, the earned income tax
Mhm.
renewal, 5-year, and Bob and I talked about that. And Bob's gonna get, a fact sheet now that got all this, get more of
Well,
this
yeah,
information
facts.
together, and, is it ideal? Did I wanna have a longer stand and talk about this? Sure, but circumstances what they are, we didn't, so. We will, we listened, we took it out of continuing, and made it a 5-year. And, we'll get the information out best we can prior to that, and see what happens.
So are we doing the remote learning because we're out of days to?
No, they'll be in here. I don't necessarily, we don't want they use the cafeteria, so we can't feed them. I mean, there's no
Oh,
kids to
I
eat.
just mean, why, because last time we just closed the school, like, was there a reason why you don't want to close for the voting day versus?
I just closed in November because of the
Oh, the
climate,
safety,
Mhm.
gotcha, okay.
just safety in general.
Mhm.
But when I talked to Fisher and I've talked to others, I don't think it's gonna be an issue. We're not out of days. I mean, we go by hours. And we can miss 16 days. I mean, we can 16 days, because we go longer than 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
So that's considered a day. So every 2.5 hours just accumulates to days.
Gotcha.
Strategic plan, I want to talk to, I want to start to work on this. And I want this to be a, full board decisions. We talk about facilities, it all rolls up into the strategic plan, right? I think these are some good things to start to talk about. I went through and, I highlighted like 5 things that I thought would be important, and I think they're, academic achievement. I think we need to focus on literacy and math.
Mhm.
If I extrapolate some of our math scores, they can be improved upon. Facility safety and security, I think that's another good topic. We can pull in our SROs for that. We can pull in, other services. Communication would be one, technology, and then finances.
Mhm.
I think with the changes in the budget and, financial situation moving forward, I think those would be good things to discuss. I mean, if you don't agree with them, that's fine, but I think, when we get together for those meetings, and some will be in the evenings and some will be, I think as a starting point, what I've seen since I got here, and some things I think that would be helpful as we deal with the issues that we've got. I think those are good goals. I think that's 5 of them. I've seen some 3, I've seen some with 12. I think 12 is not reasonable.
Mhm.
I just think, you can do 12 things mediocre, or 5 things really good, so. You have to pick which one you want to focus on. But I just, we wanted to start that, like I said, like I said, when I got here, when Tony left and we didn't have a special ed director, and the curriculum director left, we didn't have a curriculum director, and I said I would do special ed curriculum and food service and building grounds and all that stuff, but that's really not sustainable. And we've got a lot of surveys and a lot of audits, and I'm doing them all, but
Mhm.
it's just as things move on, and it goes back to, I think I told somebody I'm gonna put on a t-shirt, you want to survive or thrive, right? I mean, we can do great things. We gotta do some other extra things.
Mhm.
So. The Miami Valley, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, you said want to start this, how do you propose doing that in our workshop meetings or are we
I think the
gonna?
strategic planning, and we have talked about this a bit. I think those are meetings with community members. I think they're in the evenings. I think, I've got a layout of what it looks like. I think we start, with the work session and say, here's how you want to do this. What do you want? Here's how I've done them before. Here's some scenarios that I've done in other districts. here's what some other districts do. There's a layout. I mean, you could spend $20,000 and pay OSBA to do it.
Right.
Which they'll just turn around and say, have this meeting, have that meeting. We can do that on our own.
And are you thinking about starting that like
I
now,
would
like
like to think
summer?
in May.
In
Right,
May?
start, yeah. I mean, we got some things to get through. We've got a busy spring and graduation's the 18th, 5 o'clock. Homework.
Sunday.
And, but, yeah, I mean, I'd like to start to look at that, sooner than later. So,
Thanks.
I mean, I don't think you want to contract it out, do you?
No,
No.
Okay, good. I mean, we could do it. I just.
that was unanimous.
And quick.
Yeah.
I went to, like I said, I went to Miami Valley Career Tech Center. I spent a couple hours there with the superintendent. Well, it's a cool facility.
Very
First of all, pretty impressive when some of these kids are like getting out of there with associates and making money. And I was in the weld. I went to the weld and talked to some of the welders and the nursing and cosmetology. It was, I think I had.
Is that where you get your haircut?
No, had I known that though, I would have saved some
That
money.
is
Yeah.
point.
So for the future reference, I can eat there and get my hair cut.
And where you get your car fixed.
Why, I asked him that. He said to work on it. I got a big beater that, if I can get it up here, I might let him play with it. Used to be my kids and he went to school, I said, you don't need that. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a pretty great facility. I talked to some of the kids and, we talked about adding programming. So one of the reasons I went up there was we talked about adding an extra STEM class at the middle school. We got one, we talked about adding a second one. You can't, there's timelines are different, right? You can't add courses for this, they're like a year out.
Right.
So, we talked about that and we talked about ag. So, I've had several people come to me about ag and, I was surprised we didn't have it. And.
When you say ag, do you mean FFA?
Agriculture. Yeah, FFA, agriculture.
Well, I mean, I know what ag means, but I just,
Yeah.
if you, like.
I would
are you-
consider FFA, the chapter, to be part of the ag. I mean,
Yeah.
me personally, that's the way I see it. I
Yeah.
mean, some people just have ag, he said, but
Right,
I just
Okay.
see, when I was in Mechanicsburg, we had a really strong FFA.
well, yeah,
And a
that, I
great ag
mean,
department.
people have been asking for FFA for a
For
long
years.
time.
Mhm.
I was surprised we didn't have it when I got here. So, but Nick said there's a need, people request it from him here in Bethel. I've had people ask me about it,
Because they have a chapter at the CTC, right? Like they can also do it through there, but.
but they wanted, they can do a satellite
Well,
here.
Mhm.
Well, I
Oh,
know
yeah,
in
we definitely-
my academic committee meeting, everybody
Really?
who was there said, what about FFA? Why
Mhm.
can't we bring FFA? That's got a lot of why can't we teach the kids about what FFA could mean for
Well, yeah,
kids? Because it's
If-
And I had some contacts that I've been trying
well, if you're all
to.
okay with it, I'm gonna move forward. Like I said,
Yeah.
things move fast and I can't, try to call 5 people, have a meeting every time I try to make decisions. It's difficult. You
Right.
just gotta rely on me, hopefully, to make the right decisions while you hired me, but, I would like to move forward with ag and we're on the list. So we're first.
Oh,
For
good.
STEM and ag.
Oh.
We can get it
Oh.
in 26, 27.
Nice,
So,
let's do it.
Yeah.
yeah, I just, like I said, I mean, we had a nice program at Mechanicsburg for years while I was there. And it was fun. We had, baby animal day and animals. I milked a cow there one day. Nobody thought I knew how I did. They drove the tractors to work. It was fun.
Yeah, I think
We used to drive the tractors. to school.
we, for seniors, just do. But it's, oh, yeah.
I think it's much.
2 years ago.
But yeah, so that was my, I just wanted to give that update. I just wanted your thoughts on programming. So I'm on the wait list. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the other types of STEM classes? Because we do have some already from
We
the
have one STEM
CTC.
class in the middle. We just have so many kids that want in. We don't have enough sections.
Oh, okay.
So it was
But
additional.
like, what are they? I mean, like,
We have to,
do we pick what kind of STEM we want? Like, is it like programming or is it robotics or is
Nick
it?
just said you're on the program, because we can evaluate what exactly your needs are, but I just want to get on the list. I'm gonna make sure you all are okay with it. We can look at that down the road.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That'd be a fun exploration
Yeah,
class in
is
middle
it
school
robotics,
where
is it drones? and
where they touch on all the,
Yeah, middle school's probably more, or, I mean, it's probably a little bit of everything.
But they would like the Lego robot
Yeah.
stuff, you know, and things like that.
so what are those battle bots? They
Battle
had
bots,
bots.
Yeah, they do,
He
so I've
loved
been
that.
down there, they do some neat stuff down.
I mean, Mr. Oldigus used to fly the drones in the hallway and right there in the rotunda. In fact, I bought John one because I thought, we need one of those, cause it's so cool.
So. Yeah, so that's CTC. Any other questions on that?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
it's awesome.
Wright Pat, Air Force Base, so, I went out to Wright Pat and I've had several conversations with them. Part of it was the impact data piece, the other part was resources. So,
Mhm.
when we get resources from the Air Force, that helps our military families and our military kids, it's just not for them, the whole school district takes advantage of it. So my question was, to the Air Force, the impact data, we've never received any, and the numbers, and so Bob, I got Bob tangled up in this one. And,
I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of it.
yeah, it's new to me too, because I haven't been in a district that had,
It's
the Air Force base that close, right? So, but I couldn't figure out why we weren't seeing any financial gain from it, and I couldn't figure out why we weren't utilizing the resources. So I've been out there twice now. And talked to the colonel, and I have a liaison that's there, and I have a liaison at DC. So I've had multiple conversations, and according to them, they can't tell me exactly who, but we got 10 to 12% of our population is in the Air Force here. Well, that's 110, they're saying 110 elementary families, 45 middle school, and 29 high school. So we're not capturing them on EMIS, and we're not capturing them. So, if they don't check it on frontline when they register, we don't capture it. If we send out the paper forms, and they need the paper form, not an electronic form. So the whole process, I don't think has been done efficient. Wrong, it's not efficient. So, Mad River, Beaver Creek, and some of those. So the people at Mad River got it down to a science, they told me. So we're gonna meet with them and see their process and how they do it. But they just don't think that, if we got 250 families here, why we can't come up with 60 some kids, right? So that's the goal next year. They're auditing, we're gonna go ahead and audit what we sent them.
Mhm.
But there's different tiers and different levels. So with that being said, I mean, like I said, we've talked about the military families, we've talked, we're celebrating Spirit Week this week. Those things are, I mean, I think they need to be recognized, like, for their effort and their service and what they go through, right? But, these kids come and go too, in the middle of the year, start of the year, end of the year, they never know when they're leaving. And part of the other issue is we don't do central registration, which we're gonna switch to central registration next year, and Shelley's gonna do that. It's on top of everything else, so,
Does she know?
yeah.
Okay.
It was a chat. I mean, Reagan, I think you know how busy central registration can be. I mean, it's a job,
Yeah,
it's not, maybe not a full-time job here, but it's definitely a part-time job. So, so she'll be doing that as well. I think central registration will help not only just capture the Air Force, but it also takes care of a lot of other issues, right? Central registration, when people come in and get the same story, I need the same documents, I get the same answer. Because right now we've got, it's happened a couple of times. I've got families that will come to different buildings and one of their kids gets in and one doesn't. They have the same documents. It's a problem. So then they up my office. I said, that's a good question. So, so that was right back.
What do we get for that? I mean, is it
It's a
in
financial.
dollars?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to speak with the gal from Washington DC. As I was putting the information in there last day, evidently she, by magic, could see whatever I was doing on the computer. She called me. She need a little help. I go, yeah, that's great.
it's the government.
Especially with the government, she works, and she had up on her
She's from the government, she's here to help.
Yeah, if you have a background, Department of Education. Of course, the question you didn't want to ask is you got a job. in 2 weeks.
Are you really at work? Yeah,
Right.
But, yeah, she was very helpful. And so, she had a calculator, a spreadsheet. I started asking the very question, just to say, well, what's the potential here? And it seems like $75,000-$80,000.
Whoa.
Was some of the numbers we were seeing. I mean,
Nothing to
it's certainly,
sneeze
it's
at.
certainly a teacher, better than a poke in the eye and
Right.
get you a little money. And so, yeah, you look at it and we'll check with what these other districts are doing and maybe it starts there and it grows. So, but it's certainly worth an effort to call it a little paperwork and anywhere you can save dollars, of course,
Yeah.
back to the, to the state at this point.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah.
Take your
I'm
money.
gonna take it away.
Are there any other strings attached, or can you find out when you, if you dig into it?
We will ask if there's any strings, but I didn't get that impression at all. It just sounded like it was a federal impact aid because of them being there. And it is a thing because there's people in our ESC organization that I mentioned it to my boss. He goes, "Oh yeah," and so and so. So we're in about 50 different districts, so they've dealt with it other places. Just wasn't something that I had personally dealt with. So growth opportunity. There we go.
Ooh.
Thanks.
Next section was grade reconfiguration and restructuring. So, this will probably have the most questions. We've got, I've been working on this for months, been working with staff and administrators. Like I said, when you asked me to come here back in end of July, August, I said, we'll get this worked out. But we're busted at the seam. We need rooms. So we're gonna transfer 5th grade out and put them in the old building, the elementary, where my offices are on that top floor there. So we're gonna take, and what I've done here, just so y'all know, I'm not hiring additional administrators, but I am moving the pieces of the people that exist here currently in our district. I think, I've been here almost a year now. I know who does what, I know who can do what. I think anytime, pay is important, but I don't think it's the ultimate thing. I think when people appreciate it, they got room for growth. They're paid adequately. I think people stay. And so, I'm moving some pieces around, and so this is what I'd like to do. I'm gonna throw it out there. This is what I've been working on for a while now, and I've tried to keep everybody in the loop, but, we're looking at, taking 5th and 6th grade and making that a 5-6 building here in the old building where our office is. So you'll go, that'll be a 5-6 building, and I'm gonna move a principal over there, assistant principal over there to be principal. So then what does that leave? That leaves K4. And then a 5-6 building, a 7-8 building, and a 9-12 building. And we've looked at everything. There's room to house 5th and 6th grade. Okay, and Todd and I have been doing the things that we need to do to make that happen. We've got 2 MH units that we're gonna put in the elementary and 1 MH unit, and we're adding an additional MH unit, and we'll do one in the middle school. So then that's the K4 building, the 5-6 building, 7-8 building, and then the 9-12 building. Do I need 3 administrators? Well, first of all, I would like to have a director of student services, somebody who's going to take care of special education, curriculum, special education, the full continuum too, by the way. It's just talented and gifted, it's the whole spectrum. And then the curriculum, and then take care of, we've got 504s, we got kids that don't come to school here, but we still service them. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I don't think anybody really understands what really goes on here behind the scenes, but, and then, and we were happy to do it. And I've asked the administrators to pick up, and, I sit in a lot of these meetings as well, but, I can't be at all everywhere. So between that, I'd like to have a director of student services, and I'd like to take the assistant high school principal who's certified in special ed and has a superintendent's license and make him that position. K4 has Dylan, who's the assistant principal over there. I don't need three principals for K4. I move him to high school assistant principal. He's got a high school certificate. And then the other piece would be central registration be taken over by Shelley. We've got, and from an operational standpoint, and to what Bob and I were talking about earlier tonight, you got to come up with a capital plan. You got to come up with, what are we going to do with facilities down the road? What do we, you've got levies. I think you're going to need to build a building. I mean, we should be online for a building already, probably, but we're not yet. Because if you look at the growth, I mean, you're still going to spike here in a couple of years, I think, for more people. So, somebody that can take care of, like I'm doing food audits. I don't know a lot about food audits, right? I'm doing food service and things like that with the state, and I'm like, it's like a lot of those things I'm spending, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that this is a need. I spend time with food service. I spend time with transportation. I spend time with, buildings and ground. I spend all those things. So the goal would be to put somebody in that.
Where's Dane? I thought Damon always.
Did it have a certain
text
part of
me,
it?
yeah,
Yeah, I had it, someone said that it went out at 7:40,
Yeah, that's,
Oh.
okay, that's when that thing made a little sound and kind of blinked,
so I'm guessing it died, let me.
and then the red battery thing.
You done
was
now?
on.
Let me, I saw the text after I got done with the.
Yeah, well, Damon,
Well, thank you.
We tried.
No worries.
Thanks, Jacob.
spot the presses.
Right?
We're under the consensus, we're gonna scrap the.
We're done.
Board docs.
Yeah, I
That was,
think,
we're just not gonna expand it.
yeah. well, I
Right,
mean,
yes, sorry.
Before you scrap it
Right, yeah,
later.
sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
we're not upgrading.
yeah.
So I need to-
So public participation, do we have any more? Public participation?
Oh.
So I don't have anything prepared for this, but I just want to say a couple things on the facilities committee, if you don't mind. We did talk about so I can give you the history of the why it was a board appointed committee. But we did talk about that in the meeting, and the attendees, the 9 people who were in there, we would recommend that the Board of Education keep the facilities committee as a board appointed committee rather than changing it, in order to ensure it remains as public as possible for transparency to the community. So I just wanted to say that. And also, a board appointed committee can have 0 to 5 board members present at any time. There doesn't have to be any on it, but there can be as many, because it's a board meeting, basically, right? So, yeah. And the other thing we did talk about a little bit was the frequency, that we thought maybe monthly would not be enough, at least early on. Just as it probably wasn't in the past. And also, just for the history, so you know, kind of what happened before was they started a superintendent, what they called core committee meetings, that basically usurped the facilities committee. And then it just became kind of a beard for the decisions that were made to come to the facilities committee and say, does everybody agree to this? But there were never any options. So that's kind of what happened in the
So there's
past.
the trust issue.
Yeah, so it's a
Okay.
trust issue, and you know, like Rachel said, like the community, we did a big survey up front, not we, the facilities committee, but whoever was the architect or somebody at the time, and that 2-story building was right at the top, and yet it went away during the conversations. And a lot of that was driven by Carmen Miller, to be honest with you. I mean, that's my opinion, so, but there were other things in that survey that also.
No, it is interesting, because I mean, when we
It
built
is.
a Mechanicsburg, we built 3-story.
Yeah.
And that is, and that was the consensus of the community, is to
Yeah.
build something that was expandable and could.
And
could be
operationally
scaled
would be
and-
cheaper than what we
Right.
have, which is gonna be the most expensive
Right.
operations,
Mhm.
operations wise, it'll be the most expensive school on the planet. Because it's
Giant.
windows on the
It's a-
wall,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and they cut the mechanical one.
That was it.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
And there's no need for an executive session?
I had one question, sorry. We skipped B.
Oh, we did.
Best update?
Oh, my God, thank you.
We would never skip.
Sorry,
you.
Scott.
That's for last.
No, this is
Yeah,
best.
that's-
Say the
Oh,
best for
best.
last. This is
Yeah.
best. Seems that yeah, anyway, it's a simple one, but it was just an update. So this is the classified union. Wayne's gonna think I did it perfect. I didn't, Wayne.
It's because of where it's listed.
Can't hear you. For me. But anyway, the best is the classified unions, union, they're ratified, they're underserved, they're recognized. I just want to give you an update. We will look to start negotiations in May. Because, we can't have 3-4 drivers sitting at the negotiating table during the day. Come on. But yeah, so anyway, we've talked to Wayne and we've talked to the union, and I just, we have a draft proposal of their agreement. We looked at it, and the attorney has a copy, I got a copy. And we will start to negotiate after graduation.
In the evening, is that?
The evenings we can do, or we can do during the days after graduation.
Yeah.
Just, it's, I know a lot of it's your flexibility too, but I knew if you knew ahead of time.
If I know ahead of time.
Yeah, and we will know ahead of time. It just is a matter of, do you want to do 2 8-hour days, or do you want to do 4 4-hour days, and however it all works out. I mean, some of that, you negotiated before, some of that stuff gets ironed, those are easy, some of the easy stuff gets taken care of ahead of time. Then you come down to the table. Maybe that thing. Something's done. Yeah, thank you. I didn't want them to think I left that out, and I wanted you all to know where we're at with that, so. Perfect.
Anything else? Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Give me a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Is this good?
Yes.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Yes. See?
Oh, maybe I'm scared.
Told you.
Oh, yeah, I'm scared.
Not my first rodeo.
I'm scared.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Be scared, it's not good. I don't know about those.
Just the beginning. I signed up.
Those charity.
Paying for OSBA, that's probably where they go.
Maybe
I can tell you how much.
Oh, just from here.
I know that.
Yeah, because.
I add like Friday this one folder.
Okay.
I didn't use it.
I think I thought something really bad.
She really just split. Yeah.
Was before.
No, it was.
Well, it's just the $275 amount.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember, well, I didn't say that. It was the.
Yeah. the public.
So,
Yeah.
I said a dinner and then.
$275.
Right.
Yeah.
Mine said Mr., so that was it.
We can stop the feed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We got it in.
Yeah.
Then he goes to Jim Steak. Right, that we're home. Steak, but you're a steak like a minute and a half when he's. My wife's like, it's so disgusting. It's still moving on the plate. I never, most of it, it's tastes better. Wife would always do well. No. I've had her medium rare is too bloody. I've at least got her to medium. Like, and she's like, oh, this ain't better. Yeah, I know. So there's actual flavor. It's not, you don't get the flavor from the ketchup. Don't call red meat for nothing. I tricked it into it. Oh, excuse me.
But this thing just gives me, it gives me like years.
What's
that?
What's the,
Same with the,
even with the version we have, it doesn't, it seems like it should be, so whatever we want.
they change password options.
I'm not even asking that.
I would never spend money for that. I feel like
I think what they're.
share those should
What
get.
I was getting at They didn't interview. Getting around this. Intermingling with committees, yeah. And I can see why that could be done.
You know, it's like,
Like, you know.
yeah.
Because they
just
You didn't wanna do stairs, and they didn't want this, and they didn't want that, and they wanted.
Yeah, that's changed over my.
Open, supposedly open areas, and, I mean, again, it was expanded. Yeah, but only. I was like, oh, I'm not even.
It should be done by. Is the way. Yeah, there's someone, yeah, there's someone to do it in the office, and so, yeah, that's the first thing Mike mentioned to me, is, okay, let's start getting the correct, responsibilities. And it's just that.
You're driving along.